Hi everyone, I'm Francesca King, a fiction writer and also the director of the University of Wyoming Writing Center. So I write psychological fiction, which as a genre is categorized by the protagonist having some kind of internal secret or psychological battle that they are keeping from the reader and maybe also from themselves, and is revealed slowly, oftentimes as the narrative progresses. So today I'm going to read two excerpts from two manuscripts in progress. The first, from my book entitled Hidden Land, is about a 21-year-old Londoner whose life spirals out of control when she learns that her dead mother has been immortalized by an Icelandic cult. Okay. I didn't manage to print anything off, so I'll be reading from my phone. Okay. A mother falls from a plane. Not many people die this way, the mother thinks, as she tumbles over and over herself, the world flashing sky, earth, sky, earth, sky. She can't think of any profound final words. She's just the words, no, no, no. And then she blacks out. For 2.5 minutes, she freefalls towards the planet. Nuggets of twisted metal glance off her body, and an aeroplane seat wrenched from its metal moorings breaks her arm. Suitcases drop like missiles. Other people, most already dead or dismembered, plummet to the ground. The mother wakes up at 7,000 feet. There is a piece of plastic stuck in her back like a dorsal fin. She grasps fistfuls of air as though the sky might provide something for her to hold onto to steady her as she tumbles. Except for the black smoke trail, which spurts from the nosediving plane, there is nothing for miles above. Below, she sees the curvature of the earth, sees a wriggle of white where land meets sea. Flight KH307 has exploded above Asprigi, northern Iceland, and although she doesn't know it, does not wish it, she is on a trajectory to crash, almost centrally, onto the landmass shaped like a gigantic horseshoe. The mother has been falling for almost 3 minutes. She is oxygen deprived and has multiple broken bones, but is crucially alive. Of the 133 people on board KH307, 132 are dead. But Julia Addington is awake to watch the ground rush up to meet her. When the mother smashes into the thick blanket of snow, her heart stops. The soul rises from her chest and floats above the scene, sliding between pockets of warm and cool air. It is peaceful. The soul floats higher and sees, in the far distance, ambulances squealing along the ring road, their lights ricocheting off lava fields. The mother is bleeding into the snow. She is a blood-red Snow White, a newly birthed heroine. It would be so easy to float away. She almost does. But 40 minutes later, a paramedic in a snowsuit is kneeling by the mother. He rips open her blouse and brings paddles to her chest. The soul strains in the air, but the mother's body is pulling it to her, like a kite being reeled in. Life cleaves through the mother. Breathing again, she is strapped to a board and airlifted to Lanspitali Hospital. She hangs on to life for as long as she can. In English, the nurses call her the second coming. She thinks about Rose's little fist curling around her index finger and wonders when she'll come. Things start to morph into her. The vase on the bedside table is Rose sitting crisscross. The radiator forces trapped air through its pipes, and it is Rose beating her Barbie drum. The mother will be famous amongst the religious fanatics, the aviation freaks, the Christian do-gooders, but others did it better. She was only admitted to the elite Freefall Survivors Club, to be among the Vesna Vovlovics and the Julianne Kopakovs of the world for 9 short days. The afternoon the mother dies, her brain floods with blood. In the light above the operating table, she sees them for the first time, the fairies, the elves. Their gold-tinted world is superimposed upon hers, and they exist like floaters, in her periphery, black and gold and formless. She wants to tell the surgeon about these people, and ask whether he too can see them, but her mouth is thick from anesthesia. When the mother dies, she walks towards a house. Its roof is thatched with grass and heather, the stone walls supported by driftwood beams. It is built into the side of a cliff, and when the door opens, the house glitters from within. Okay, this next excerpt is from the opening chapter of my manuscript entitled The Footnote. In this story of the deadly consequences of academic plagiarism and the competition between two young adjuncts who teach at the same university, the protagonist, Beatrix, waits to hear if she's won a place on a new prestigious research residency located in the Arctic. The residency, hosted by the billionaire William Frobisher, will be hosted on a ship and is a perfect reconstruction of Franklin's ship that was lost to the Arctic in 1845. William Frobisher is late to his own guest lecture, even though it's been inked into our calendars for 9 months. I'm waiting for him outside the Matheson Auditorium, scanning the dark grounds for the pair of headlights that will announce the arrival of his rental car. Frigid wind whips off the mountain range, freezing my nostril hairs. 300 faculty, students, and local residents from the mountain town are inside the auditorium. If he doesn't turn up within the next 5 minutes, I might voluntarily walk into those mountains, curl up inside a crevasse, and die. I check Outlook on my phone for the 1000th time. No new email. If Frobisher bails on me, I'll be forever known as the idiot adjunct who wasted everyone's time, the wannabe big name on campus, the failed transatlantic transplant, the apath from England. My thumbnails clack quickly against my phone screen. Hey Maddie, I'm waiting for William now. He's a few minutes late, which isn't a problem, but I'm wondering if he made it okay to the airport? I'm about to tap send when the black Mercedes swings onto the end of the driveway. Frobisher, thank God. I delete the draft and watch the car's agonizingly slow progression. The driveway is so long that in the spring semester, the students compete against each other in the Aspen Crest Sprint, aiming to run one length of the driveway before the school clock finishes its clanky midday rendition of the Star-Spangled Banner. The hired car is in no such rush. It glides along, silent as a bat, then crests around the horseshoe and stops in front of me. Good evening. I greet the driver, who acknowledges me with a quick nod. He opens the rear passenger door, and William Frobisher swings his legs out of the car. He's only 55, but there's something old-worldly about his demeanor. Maybe it's the crisp corner of a handkerchief peeking out of his breast pocket, or his centrally parted, brill-creamed hair, but he looks like he stepped directly out of a history textbook, like he'd cock his head and ask what an iPhone was or how to use the Google. His net worth is also $2.4 billion. Well, I'll be. Is this Beatrix Winter? Frobisher strides around the car and shakes my hand. My fingers are frozen, but also somehow damp with nerves. Thank you so much for flying out. Everyone is really excited for your lecture, I say, surreptitiously wiping my hands on my serious academic black dress. I bought it because I wanted him to think I was impressive, but now I just hope he isn't repulsed by me. Anxiety is thrumming through my body like a low electric current. Do you need anything, I ask? Are you ready? All set. His southern accent, the soft remnants of it, doesn't match his appearance. In the yellow light spilling from the cracked auditorium door, he looks every bit the traditional English gentleman, save for his leathery tan. I imagine he spends a lot of time in private yachts, circling private islands, living a lifestyle I can't even imagine. Inside, the chatter has risen to fever pitch, 300 people hankering for Frobisher. Any time to look around the place? Frobisher asks as I lead him backstage. My expression must have betrayed my fear of further delays because he adds, or not, I'd have liked to have seen my old dorm, but I read it's for girls now. Not that I'm against co-education, but don't you sometimes miss the good old days? All the time, I say. I have a master's degree in history, but I'm also only 26. My students think I'm ancient. My research pulls me 200 years back in time, and I have to regularly remind myself that I'm supposed to be living the good old days. Frobisher and I sit opposite each other in a pair of low armchairs. The stage lights are blinding. I can see the silhouettes of the people sitting in the first row, while everybody else blurs into a dark, breathing mass. I know from the registration form that there are 23 associate professors on coveted rolling contracts, 12 tenured dinosaurs who've been teaching at Aspen Crest longer than I've been alive, a large handful of graduate students, a university-sponsored lecture, their idea of a good night out. Jared is here somewhere, a small comfort. Chicky too, the opposite of that. The stark temperature difference between the outside and the auditorium is making me sweat more. I swipe quickly at my upper lip and my hand comes away wet. I've never been more nervous, all these people waiting to hear me talk. One shaky breath to make sure I don't faint, and then I can't stall any longer. I tap lightly on the microphone. Poof, poof. The auditorium falls silent. I'm Beatrix Winter, a lecturer for the History Department. I'm delighted to welcome William Frobisher back to Aspen Crest to talk about a very exciting project. William graduated from Aspen Crest in 1992 with a degree in mechanical engineering. Now he's the founder of the successful franchise of nautical-themed amusement parks in Orlando, Malaysia, Singapore, and the United Kingdom. According to his Wikipedia page, the Seafarer Adventure Parks are more than just successful. Over the past year, they had a combined revenue of $200 million, helped in no small part by Frobisher's genuine love for nautical history. He's the face of the television advertisements, famous for his catchphrase, which he delivers with a Walt Disney-esque cock of the head. It's time to embark on an adventure into uncharted fun. I finish my little spiel, my voice strong despite my heart cartwheeling in my stomach, and Frobisher raises his microphone. How many of you have heard about the Franklin expedition of 1845, he asks. A few people murmur, and I slide my trembling hand under my thigh to stop it from shooting into the air. Me, pick me. The expedition, he explains, led by John Franklin, set out to discover the Northwest Passage, an important trading route through the Canadian Arctic. The HMS Erebus and HMS Terror left England with a crew of 129 men. Both ships became icebound in the Arctic for 3 years, and the entire expedition perished from exposure, scurvy, and lead poisoning, with some men having no choice but to cannibalize their dead crewmates. Frobisher pauses for a dramatic effect. My arms prickle with tough little goosebumps. The fate of Franklin and his men remained a mystery for decades, he continues. Countless search missions tried and failed to find the ships. But in 2014, the wreckage of the Erebus was finally located in just 10 feet of water. He turns to me and my blood zings at being put on the spot. Beatrix, do you remember where you were when the news broke? I nod quickly. I can't see the audience, but I feel their eyes on me. I was completing my undergrad in London. I went to the Death in the Ice exhibition to see the first 20 artifacts. Heat is rising in my cheeks. Thank God I had an answer and didn't have to fumble for a lie in front of the crowd. Frobisher launches into an explanation of the evacuation, an ongoing process which I know intimately through my research. And I think about the Death in the Ice exhibition, the artifacts returned to England from Canada, the ship's bronze bow embossed with the year 1845, a glass medicine vial, a set of willow pattern plates, a single leather shoe. These things worked together to create a rich portrait of the doomed exhibition. I could imagine a sailor lacing his shoes with purple frostbitten fingers, an officer scraping his fork over one of the willow pattern plates, the ship's bow, warning Franklin to steer clear of the icebergs, which he did for a while, until there was much more ice than seawater, and the ships were completely gridlocked off King William Island. The stories of those sailors seeped into my blood. I've been obsessed ever since. Thank you. And next up we have James Cowell, who's a visual artist.
Oh, we have some questions, don't we?
Oh, is it now or after? Oh, sure, go ahead.
I'm just intrigued by your point of view, especially in the first one. Were you ever, I'm like going, was she ever traumatized by airline flights or, whatever. But the whole thing with being able to capture everything that goes on as you're in an accident, the time spans out. Mm-hmm. And then wonderful things like she's coming, and she's on the operating table and she sees the ferries and she's thinking, they're kind of like floaters. I wonder if the surgeon can see. I mean, just wonderful kinds of things happening in your description. So can you talk about point of view?
Yeah, sure. So that I'm sort of treat that chapter as the prologue, and so that's the, even though I'm looking at the minutiae of somebody falling out of the plane and the thoughts that they might be feeling and the things they might be thinking about as they fall. The rest of the novel is very much like traditional, I would say, in terms of like the psychological fiction, where it turns back to the first person and really looks at Rose, her daughter, who's been left behind. She's in foster care. And she is coming to terms with living a life without her mother, and then she receives a phone call from somebody in Iceland who invites her to give a talk at their organization, but it's a cult. So I think I would just say that that chapter, that's the only time that we hear the perspective from the mother, and then the rest of the book is split between Rose, her daughter, and then Sigatha, who's a lecturer at the University of Iceland, and wants to get to know Rose in a legitimate way, but also kind of wants to exploit her for a book that he's writing about this cult on the 20th anniversary of her mother's death.
And then in the second piece, I just picked up on, I love it when people say, oh, what are you going to major in? Art. And it's like, oh yeah, right, good luck with that. Or literature, or creative writing. And Forrester majors in chemical engineering?
Mechanical engineering.
Mechanical engineering, and he ends up being this megalomaniac amusement park guy making billions of dollars. So, it's not so bad to be majoring in art and it's hard telling what you'll turn into. Mechanical engineering is no guarantee.
He used his knowledge to create the parks.
Yeah, it's just kind of the contrast you don't think about sitting there.
I have a question. It's kind of along Mary Jane's question with a point of view, but you talked about the genre. I don't know how you framed it exactly, but that there's a secret being kept. Is
yeah.
I'm curious. Is the secret being kept from the reader, or is it like you see it within the narration, or is it?
It can be both. So oftentimes in psychological fiction, the perspective will be from the first person, so the I narrator, and that's because there has to be like a slight element, or very, very close to third person, I suppose, but there has to be an element of somebody telling their own story and maybe lying to themselves, maybe keeping secrets from themselves, maybe from the reader. And I think that's something that I really enjoy in my work, is to keep a secret, at least until like maybe the third or fourth chapter, and then suddenly there's a little twist, and then something very awful about the protagonist that we didn't know so far is then revealed. So we have to, as a reader, like recalibrate our understanding of who this person is who's taking us along the ride.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Could you repeat the name of that title, the first title that you read?
Yeah, it's Hidden Land. Hidden Land.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's gorgeous.
Thank you.
Is that something that you've already published, or that you're?
No, it's a manuscript in progress. So
Oh, gotcha.
I hope so.
Did you do research about like the physics of falling out of a plane, and can you actually hit things like and get like the way the dorsal fin imagery? I was not if that's real.
Well, so I did a lot of research. It's made me terrified to fly on airplanes. Really makes a bad result of that. But yeah, so there were two names I mentioned in that opening chapter, Julianne Kopikov and Vesel Wolfenbeck. I think that's how you say their names, and they are two real people who survived crashes out of airplanes. Julianne Kopikov has a memoir about this. Her airplane crashed over the jungle. She fell out strapped to an airplane seat, and the airplane seat, I mean, they say it cushioned her fall, but I still don't really see how falling hundreds of thousands of feet could enable you to cushion your fall. But she crashed into the, she describes the trees as like broccoli florets. So when she was falling down, they were very dense. And her parents passed away on that same flight, but she was the sole survivor and spent a number of days in the wilderness before somebody rescued her. So these things happen. And then, yes, the other person I mentioned, I think she was Russian, and she also survived and was in a coma for a number of months, I think, but came out the other side. So yeah, these things can happen. I was just interested in what might happen if somebody survived, and then in Iceland, it's a place of like so much folklore and interesting like pagan rituals and things. So I was just wondering how an Icelander might have interpreted the fact of somebody falling out of an airplane, landing on their island, and then living for 9 days.